Well, at this point, whenever we talk about Brexit, it's like, remember that video we did back in X and we warned about this problem and you know we took it to people who were like the Brexiteers or even Brexit supporters saying this is going to be a problem. How do you intend to solve this problem? Or people are going to solve this problem. What is your answer to this problem? If people are going to solve, if people are going to have, problem A, how do you going to provide a problem, the B solution to their problem? And there is none. There never ever is. To this day, you never ever hear Brexiteers talk about actual solutions to most of these companies' problems. And they'll say, oh no, we have solutions. It's easy. We just get rid of these regulations. And you're like, what do you mean get rid of these regulations? We're talking about regulations in Europe. That's where who controls those regulations. You don't have control over those regulations. And if you're a company who wants to trade with our closest trading partners, which it is the EU, again, trade gravity is a thing. So you can't just automatically just go, yeah, we're going to trade with, Europe. And we've been trading very successfully now for maybe the past 20, 30, 10 years. And then suddenly go, okay, no, we're going to start doing trade with, I don't know, New Zealand or Australia, or we're going to start sending stuff to America. It's not that easy, especially if you've got a new product. And even then, they have regulatory barriers, which you will have to cover as well. And also remember, in trade, distance does matter. The further you send something, the more it costs. Something that still many Brexiteers do not seem to understand. But anyway, let's get into more bad news for businesses. So before we go diving into this, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a foundation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel that way. So let's go over to this one. So this comes from The Independent with the title of More Than Half of Businesses Hit by Increased Regulatory Burdens Due to Brexit. So let's get on with this then, shall we? Oh, hang on. There we go. So increased regulatory burdens due to Brexit have hit 54% of businesses, new data shows. Data published by the Central Statistics Office, or the CSO, shows that 2 in 5, that's 40% of enterprises, had difficulty sourcing raw materials or immediate products from suppliers abroad due to the pandemic. More enterprises, about 47%, that purchased goods and materials from suppliers abroad and supplied them to enterprises overseas was 42%. Raw materials, 21%, and machinery and other technical equipment, 20%, used in a firm's production, were the most common purchases from abroad. The United Kingdom was the most popular location for both global purchasing and supply of goods and materials, and even services and data. The data shows the Northern Ireland Protocol was created as part of the Brexit agreement as a way to try and avoid this hard land border on the island of Ireland. It did so by moving regulatory and customs processes, the Irish Sea, creating new checks on goods being shipped to Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Colin Hanley, the statistician in the Business Statistic Division, said that the results of this publication have shown the level of participation in global value chains and agreements in 2020. Almost half of 47% of all enterprises, with around 50% or more persons engaged, purchased goods and materials abroad used for in their own production, while only 24% supplied goods and materials abroad. More than a third, 35%, purchased services abroad, while 22% supplied services to another firm overseas. Enterprises that included raw materials, about 21% of machinery and other technical equipment used in farm productions, were the most common purchases from abroad, while final goods delivered to companies for resale at 13% were the most supplied. Information communication technology services were the most purchased services from abroad. The majority of enterprises that purchased supplies, goods, and materials services abroad did so with the United Kingdom. And of course, the pandemic did impact the GVC arrangements of both home and abroad. Due to COVID-19, more than two in five enterprises had difficulty acquiring the raw goods and immediate products for suppliers domestically, compared with about 40% of enterprises having difficulty with supplies from abroad. Meanwhile, more than half of the enterprises had been impacted by an increased regulatory burden due to Brexit. More than 9 in 10 manufacturing enterprises purchasing goods and materials from abroad, while 82% supplied good materials. Manufacturing had also the highest proportion of firms purchasing services from abroad. Almost a third of enterprises in the service sector supplied services abroad in 2020. Almost 4 in 10 enterprises indicated that they purchased goods and materials from the United Kingdom, while 35% purchased from the European Union, excluding Ireland. Almost 1 in 10 enterprises purchased from a European country outside the UK and outside the EU and the UK, while 21% purchased from the rest of the world. Raw materials used in firms' own production processes and even machinery and other technical equipment used from the businesses were the most common purchases. And products designed by another company for resale or in domestic or even foreign markets were the least reported cycle of that purchase, and the data also revealed. And also, cancellation orders and a decline in incoming orders from domestic customers was also the biggest common impact during the pandemic, it further found. Almost half of enterprises said that cancellation orders or a decline in income of the orders from domestic customers due to the pandemic had an impact on them. And the decline in orders from customers from abroad impacted around 34% of enterprises. So, above all, that's a lot of statistics and information. But what does this all mean? Well, not too surprisingly, you won't find we tend to bring in more stuff because we don't have a lot of raw materials here in the UK. We don't have a lot of manufacturing, so we do need to bring in more finished goods, more sort of machinery and equipment into the UK. Where does that come from? It comes from Europe, because you can't just go purchasing stuff from, America. Because obviously, if you purchase from America, well, then you've got to bring it over. And that is a far, far bigger cost than just getting it from Europe. We said it at the beginning, distance matters. And even though a lot of that, we're still obviously seeing the effects of the pandemic, it is very well worth reminding people that the pandemic has covered up a lot, I mean a lot, of damages that Brexit has indeed done. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that we do continue to see these effects in numbers, that we do continue to see the effects of the regulatory divergences that we end up having in the UK when eventually the government dares to even get around to doing them. And that will cause huge, huge problems when we start to do that, because companies are going to want to follow European standards. They're going to have to. And one of the big key things of joining the European Union, joining the single market, was that companies wouldn't have to have 2 production lines. They could just have 1 production line. And you might say, well, why can't a company have 1 production line? They can, but then what about goods on that it's going to sell into the UK market? What if there are massive divergences? You don't know what unfortunately could be happening, what could be the consequences of this. And this is going to cost companies hundreds of millions of pounds in extra paperwork, logistical costs, manpower costs. And this isn't going to cause businesses to maybe grow. It might even cause them to contract, because they're having to spend so much extra money, not on the business themselves or employees, but it actually has to spend money on this new administrative red tape cost that Brexit has put on them. But that was always going to be the case. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching. I will see you all